Nama Om Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Vastai Bhale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline. Nivasishisha Nivadi Pashtatara Satanine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome again. Repeat, say welcome our Bhagavad Gita enthusiasts. Very exciting. We're beginning chapter 8, and I just looked today at if I saw it correctly. This is the perhaps I should check again. It sounds a lot, but this is the 97th session that we've had on the Bhagavad Gita. Wow. Does that sound correct? Perhaps I should double check that. It sounds a lot because we was doing 2 every week, wasn't it? So 2, 4, 6, 8. So I don't see why not. But anyway, so for 96 hours, if that's correct, we've been discussing so far Bhagavad Gita. That's wonderful. So we're going to read before we begin reading chapter 8. I'm going to read the Gita Mahatmya by Srila Vyasadeva. Some of you may have heard of it. It's a wonderful little book, actually. And it gives a story behind each chapter, glorifying that specific chapter and the glories and benefits of hearing that chapter. So I'll just read through that. I just read it through just now. It's only a small, wonderful, short story. Okay? So this is the glories of chapter 8. Lord Shiva said, "My dear Parvati, now please listen to the glories of the 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. After listening to this, you will feel great joy." Once upon a time, in the south is an important town of the name Amadkapur, in which one Brahmana of the name Bhavashama lived, who had taken a prostitute as his wife. Bhavashama enjoyed eating meat, drinking wine, stealing, going with others' wives, and hunting. One day, the sinful Bhavashama was invited to a party where he drank so much alcohol that it started to come out of his mouth. After the party, he became very sick and suffered from chronic dysentery. And after many days of suffering, he died and attained the body of a date palm tree. Right? So date palm tree is full of intoxicating liquor. So one day, 2 Brahma Rakshasas, these are known as ghosts, okay? Disembodied ghosts. Brahmanas who are disembodied, who've led a sinful life, okay? One day, 2 Brahma Rakshasa ghosts came and took shelter under that tree. Their previous life story was as follows. Okay, we're going to hear about these 2 Brahma Rakshasas, how they got in that position. There was a Brahmana by the name Kushibal, who was very learned in the Vedas and had studied all branches of knowledge. His wife was named Kumati, who was very evil-minded. Although that Brahmana was very learned, he was also very greedy. Along with his wife, he used to collect lots of charity every day, but he would never give charity to any other Brahmana. When their time came to die, they both attained the forms of a Brahma Rakshasas. As Brahma Rakshasas, they continuously wandered here and there over the earth, suffering from hunger and thirst. One day, they rested under that date palm tree. At that time, the wife inquired from the husband, "How can we get free from this curse of being Brahma Rakshasas?" He replied, "By knowledge of Brahma, by knowledge of the self, by knowledge of fruitive activities." So I'm just going to check there's no one trying to get in because I've not got the page up. Yes, there's 3 people banging on the door. Quick, let's let them in. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, sorry, you was waiting at the door. I was just reading something. We're just reading from the Gita Mahatmya by Srila Vyasadeva, which gives a glorification of each chapter. So we're just reading one story. Yeah, so.
No problem.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, welcome. Hare Krishna. Yes, so no, anyway, I won't repeat the story, but it tells of two Brahmanas, a Brahmani and a Brahmana, husband and wife, who weren't actually Brahmanas by quality. They were quite wicked. So they took birth as Brahma Rakshasas, and they are now sitting under a date palm tree. And that date palm tree was that was the body of a Brahmana who died, who wasn't actually a Brahmana. He was very sinful, and he died by drinking too much alcohol. So in his next life, he took birth as a date palm tree, right? And two Brahma Rakshasas have come and sitting under this date palm tree, and they're speaking amongst each other. They're speaking to each other. Okay. One day, they rested under that date palm tree. At that time, the wife inquired from the husband, "How can we get free from this curse of being Brahma Rakshasas?" He replied, "By knowledge of Brahma, by knowledge of the self, by knowledge of fruitive activities. Without such knowledge, it is not possible to get free from our sinful reactions." So he's had some type of flashback to perhaps his earlier teaching as a Brahmana. Upon hearing this, the wife inquired, "Oh, my lord, what is Brahma? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? Kim tat Brahma, kim adhyatma, kim kama purushottama?" Completely by accident, the wife happened to chant half of the first sloka of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. At that time, having heard that half sloka, Baba Sharma broke free from that form as a tree and again attained the body of a Brahmana. Completely free of all sin, suddenly from the sky came a flower airplane, which took that husband and wife back home, back to Godhead, Vaikuntha. All right, so the tree's transformed into a Brahmana, a plane's come down and took these Rakshasa couple back to Vaikuntha. Afterwards, that Brahmana, Bhava Sharma, with a great respect, wrote down that half sloka. Kim tat Brahma, kim adhyatmam, kim kama purushottama. And with the intention of worshipping Lord Krishna, he went to Kashipuri and started performing great austerities while continuously chanting that half sloka. Kim tat Brahma, kim adhyatma, kim purushottama. Meanwhile, in Vaikuntha, Lakshmi, seeing Lord Vishnu had risen suddenly from taking rest, inquired with folded hands, "Why have you risen so suddenly from your sleep?" Lord Vishnu said, "My dear Lakshmi, in Kashipuri, on the bank of the river Ganges, my devotees performing great austerities continuously, chanting half a sloka of the 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. For a long time, I have been thinking how to award his devotion." Parvati inquired from Lord Shiva, when Lord Shiva was so pleased with his devotee, what benediction did he bestow upon him? Lord Shiva said, "Bhava Sharma went to Vaikuntha to engage in the eternal service of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Not only that, but all of his ancestors also attained the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. My dear Parvati, I have described to you just a little of the glories of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita." Okay, Hare Krishna. So now we all ready for the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Yes. Just in case something goes wrong. Chant it. All right, let's share the screen. Share the Bhagavad Gita. And I had it already there, and now I can't see it. Where is it? Okay, 1 second. Let's bring it up again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Oh, here it is. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Share screen just now coming. I'll be with you in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Woof. There it is. Bhagavad Gita, Attaining the Supreme, chapter 8. And here's that first 2 lines. Kim tat brahma kim adhyatmam kim kama purushottamam. Right? So if you even learn these first 2 lines, it'd be of great benefit for you. Okay, we said a prayers to Srila Prabhupada at the beginning. Okay, so let's have someone to volunteer to read. Remember the benefits you get from reading this?
I'll read it. I'll read it.
Go on then, jump
I
in.
think to get this one will be not
Hare
good.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Chapter
Hare
8,
Krishna.
Attaining the Supreme, text 1. Arjuna Vacha, Kim Tat Brahma, Kim Adhyatma, Kim Karma Purushottamam, Adibhutanam Cha Kim Proktam, Adidevam Kim Uchite. Translation. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Purport. In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers different questions from Arjuna, beginning with what is Brahman? The Lord also explains karma, fruitive activities, devotional service, and yoga principles, and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the supreme absolute truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In addition, the living entity, the individual soul, is also called Brahman. Arjuna also inquires about Atma, which refers to body, soul, and mind. According to the Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to mind, soul, body, and senses also. Arjuna has addressed the Supreme Lord as Purushottam, the Supreme Person, which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to the Supreme Person, knowing him to be the Supreme Authority, able to give definitive answers.
Definitive answers, yeah.
Definitive answers.
Definitive answers. Okay, thank you. So,
After reading this, I can go back home. Okay.
yeah.
Question? Answer?
Yes, that's it. It's all set. You don't need to chant anymore. You can no need to
Okay.
chant. Yeah, so
Oh, just one question. I was talking to somebody. They on the way to Goloka Vrindavan, you have to go through Vaikuntha planets.
you don't go, I don't know if you go through it as if you go through the you go
Like
through it.
Kumar did, no, yeah.
Yeah, but generally, as far as I can remember, yeah, because someone who actually goes back to Godhead, then they're worshipped by all the demigods and all the sages as they transcend, as they even as they transcend the different levels of the material realm. Then they enter into the Vaikunthas, and they're worshipped. Yeah. It also acts as another way, is also in another sense that one should be purified in heart and not be tempted by the different planetary systems that one passes through on the way back to Godhead. Yeah, that's also there as well. So it's something like that. Yeah, one passes through all the material realms, the upper planets of the sages, and one goes to Vaikuntha, and then yeah.
Okay, so
I
one
think
has
that's
to
described in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, I think.
Yeah.
And actually, it's going to be described in this chapter. The ascendants, or this chapter is mainly dedicated to, as the title suggests, attaining the Supreme. It's mainly dedicated to leaving the world, and it describes the yogic path. And then after describing that, Krishna describes the path of the bhakta. Yeah, so some details are given there. Perhaps we might read that in the purports. You know,
Okay.
that's okay. Yeah.
Got to make sure the mind is focused wherever we want to go and not be tempted by all these beautiful jewels and thrones and gardens and whatever.
Something like that, yes. I mean, yeah, even, I mean, that's part of our spiritual development, even here in this body.
Yeah.
Because as one becomes acquainted and one has perception by Krishna's grace of the glories of Goloka Vrindavan, okay, then everything that's in the scriptures is not theory for you, it's fact. So you read about the heavenly planets, it's a fact. And if you want, you can go there. See, it's a test. So as you're reading about it, as you may hear about it, see, the idea, that's why Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that we should keep focused on the supreme planet of Krishna. Yeah, as part of spiritual life is to get tested. Yeah, do we really want do we only want Krishna and Krishna's service, or do we want to stop off in the heavenly planets? But Krishna is so kind that if one's a devotee and that desire is still there, then one will stop in the heavenly planets. And then they become Tama Kinchana Gochara, they become exhausted. And then they will go back to Godhead. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's going to be described here, attaining the Supreme. So yeah, Arjuna's asking in this verse and the next verse, he's going to be asking questions. A little commentary here, just so we know where we're going. It describes what is Brahman. So he wants to know whether Brahman is the jiva or the super soul. Okay. Prabhupada actually explains that Brahman, the term is given to both, but one is Pada Brahman. Okay. Anyway, there's more here by Baladev Vijayabhushana, but he describes what is karma. If karma activity, so karma meaning the cause of bondage, yeah, the cause of different bodies, yeah. So he asked, does it refer to fruitive or spiritual activity? And what is adhibhuta? What is adhibhuta? Took a note here. It's the material substratum. Some of the acharyas call it the material substratum. What is the underlying principle of existence? Yeah. So this world has an underlying principle, and that's Brahman, and that's Krishna. Yeah. Has an underlying spiritual principle which moves and holds matter together. Yeah. So that's called adhibhuta. Yeah. So Arjuna is asking about that. Is it the gross physical things you are referring to?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram,
Ram Ram. Well done. If someone could mute, Olena Golaksh. If you could mute, please, Mother. Hare Krishna. Also, it's the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's very purifying. Yeah, yeah. So Adibhuta, so Adideva. So you'll see these terms used in Bhagavatam. Yeah, Adibhuta, Adibhuta, Adhyatma, and Adideva. So good to kind of try and understand them. So Adibhuta, what's the physical things? Adideva. Anyone can say what that is? Adideva. Deva. Devas.
Demigods.
Demigods, yeah, yeah. He asked about the governing, who's the boss in charge of the demigods? There must be someone. Is there someone above them? Please tell me. Yeah. Wow, Basham time. Alikish, I've got to, 1 second, I've got to go muting here.
Yeah. I can...
Participants. Okay. Mute. Yeah, it's like playing a computer game. Hare Krishna. Okay, all right. So Adi Deva is the, what's the governing? Who's the governor of the demigods? It's described here. Is the demigod? Is it a demigod or is it the Virat Rupa? Yeah, the universal form of the Lord. So that's the first series and questions, and the questions continue here. I think, yeah, in text 2. All right. So just remember the main focus of this chapter is going to be the process of leaving the world. Especially Arjuna asks, because Arjuna is especially inquisitive, because he asks, what is the destination of one who dies? And the reason he's asking this because he's on the battlefield where he could die at any moment. So, and we're on the battlefield of life, so it could happen to us, but it's more ostensibly possible when you're on the battlefield. So Arjuna is asking, yeah, how can one attain the supreme? Yeah, in such, if one is to leave the world. Yeah. And Krishna will answer. All right. So, any other questions or comments here? Otherwise, we can go on to text 2. Adhyatma katam kotra. Okay, someone like to read this one?
I can read if you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead. Now, nice and clear. Thank you, Gayatri Mother.
Adhyatma katham kotra dehesmin Madhusudana prayana kale chakatham gniyosi niyatatmabi. Translation. Who is the Lord of sacrifice and how does he live in the body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Purport. Lord of sacrifice may refer to either Indra or Vishnu. Vishnu is the chief of the primal demigods, including Brahma and Shiva, and Indra is the chief of the administrative demigods. Both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped by yajna performances. But here Arjuna asks, who is actually the Lord of yajna, sacrifice, and how the Lord is residing within the body of the living entity. Arjuna addresses the Lord as Madhusudana because Krishna once killed a demon named Madhu. Actually, these questions, which are of the nature of doubts, should not have arisen in the mind of Arjuna, because Arjuna is a Krishna-conscious devotee. Therefore, these doubts are like demons. Since Krishna is so expert in killing demons, Arjuna here addresses him as Madhusudana, so that Krishna might kill the demonic doubts that arise in Arjuna's mind. Now, the word Prayana Kale in this verse is very significant because whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. Arjuna is very anxious to know of those who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. What should be their position at that final moment? At the time of death, all the bodily functions are disrupted and the mind is not in a proper condition. Thus, disturbed by the bodily situation, one may not be able to remember the Supreme Lord. Maharaja Kulashekar, a great devotee, prays, "My dear Lord, just now I am quite healthy, and it is better that I die immediately, so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet." The metaphor is used because the swan, a bird of the water, takes pleasure in digging into the lotus flowers. Its sporting proclivity is to enter the lotus flower. Maharaja Kulashekar says to the Lord, "Now my mind is undisturbed and I am quite healthy. If I die immediately thinking of your lotus feet, I am sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. But if I have to wait for my natural death, then I do not know what will happen, because at that time the bodily functions will be disrupted, my throat will be choked up, and I do not know whether I shall be able to chant your name. Better let me die immediately." Arjuna questions how a person can fix his mind on Krishna's lotus feet at such a time. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go back so I can see the bit more of the purport. Any immediate questions here or comments? So the Lord of sacrifice is adhyatma. Yeah. Yeah,
I was
there's-
thinking of that slok. I mean, I don't know the slok, but you know how Krishna says that well, he preserves what you've got, and he
he carries what you lack
and he.
and preserves what you have.
So thinking
Yeah.
of that slok and spending your time in Krishna conscious, we hope that Krishna will help us at the time of death.
Yeah, what's that sloka? Anyone know that sloka? I mean, I don't know it. I just need the first word of it. Chapter 9. Any Bhakti Sastri students out there? Otherwise, I'm going to have to stop and look it. I got to find it. I got to find it. That verse. It's a very important verse. And I'm gonna, excuse me. Here it is. Ananyas chintayantam mam ye junapai pasate tesam nityabhyuktamam yogic shemi vahami aham. Yeah, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. That's chapter 9, text 22, for your interest. Yeah, I mean, that's hope. And that's the mood of this verse, which Prabhupada, which is here by Kulashekara, you could say, my Lord. Also, there's a prayer in the Ishopanishad that is in the same vein, that, oh my Lord, please remember all that I have done. Yeah. Yeah, so one who meditates on Krishna with exclusive devotion. Yeah, so exclusive means one is, just Krishna. There's no other. One is dependent just upon Krishna. Yeah, that's the mood of a devotee, my Lord. And this is the mood of Kulashekara here as well. Yeah. Yes. And just as for your interest, Arjuna, Krishna has many different names. And Arjuna addresses Krishna by many different names in the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Sometimes I'm just trying to think as you was reading this, there's one in the earlier on in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. Trying to think of the name that Arjuna uses. But he calls Krishna a specific name where here, it might even be this name, Madhusudana. And he calls them Madhu, but in that context, he's calling Krishna that name. It's a little bit sarcastic because Krishna kills demons. Okay, generally Krishna kills demons. Yeah, he doesn't kill his devotees. But Krishna is asking Arjuna to kill his relatives. So he says, Krishna, you don't do that. You're known as Madhusudana, says that name. You actually kill demons, and you're asking me to kill my reverend grandfather Bhishma and my reverend teacher Drona. Yeah. So you see that Krishna, these used words, Krishna's names are invoked to serve a different purpose by Arjuna, to make a specific point. Yeah. So here he's asking, it brings out to kill the demon of doubt. Yeah. And then it begins to describe, Prabhupada doesn't waste any time, it begins to describe about Prayena Kale. Yeah. Everything we do will be tested at the time of death. Anyone know that Bengali proverb? Your bhajam will be tested at the time of death. Any Bengalis here? Yeah, there's a Bengali proverb like that. Your bhajam will be tested at the time of death. Yeah. And that will be elaborated on in this chapter. I guess we're bringing out some points that will come up. And that's why that's why Krishna encourages Arjuna to remember him while he's doing his duties. Yeah, to remember him while he's engaged as a Kshatriya. Yeah, so that's why we should practice to remember Krishna, so we can prepare for when we have to leave the world, so it can be full of thoughts of Krishna and nothing else. Yeah, not the bank balance, not who's going to feed the kid, who's going to feed the pets when I'm gone. Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? What about my grandchildren? Isn't it? If you think about it, I don't know if anyone's ever, I guess we all have. We might have, we've been present, or when we've been present when someone's leaving the world. I've been both with devotees and with non-devotees. And especially with non-devotees leaving the world, they're very, very, very concerned of how things or what's going to happen to those who are left behind. Yeah. So they're attached. I mean, with my mother, my dear mother, she left the world through cancer. And I was there leading up to the time that she left. And that was a constant anxiety, was who's going to take care of me? I'm trying to explain to her, there's no need to worry about that, mother. You know, I've been taken care of all these years, you know. So that's the idea, is to develop, as we progress in Krishna consciousness, our affection and our attachment should be developed towards Krishna. It doesn't mean we don't love and don't have affection for the children and the grandchildren. Yeah. But at that time, we really want to make sure that we've really just put it in, let the universe take care of the grandkids. There's nothing I can do at this point, or the children, nothing I can do. I am on the journey now to leave this world. So let me just focus on Krishna. Yeah. The universe is still going to go on without me. Yeah. They're still going to live without me. You know, they're still going to, yeah. So this is important. So, yes. And that's why I call it, and Kula Shaker wants to die while he's healthy. Yeah. Anyone have that desire?
Mm-hmm. Yes, now.
Do, yeah?
Now.
No.
Now, this minute.
Uh-huh.
Ready to go this minute.
Yeah, why we're reading Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8.
Yes, ready to go. Ready.
Right. Plane will come down from Vaikuntha. We say, if a plane comes down from Vaikuntha and goes to Vaikuntha, say, no, sorry, wrong place.
Yes.
Wrong place.
Go look up in that one.
Yeah, I booked my tickets for the place for Goloka. It's above this place. Anyway, jokes aside, preparation. Yeah, spiritual life is about preparation. Yeah, you see that all different spiritual traditions, they're just preparing themselves to die. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Mayavadis, everyone, they're just preparing. They're just preparing for their next journey. Yeah, preparation. Yeah, and it gives that development of our next destination gives a level, especially in Krishna consciousness. It simultaneously gives a joy and freedom and detachment from this world, because we're focused on something greater than this world, something more substantial than this temporary world, you know. So it gives you a sense of detachment and relief from this world. Yeah, but it's not going to be easy, as Kula Shaker says here. Time of death, when my voice will be choked up, and who's to know what's going to happen at the time of death? We might have pipes shoved down their throat and linked up to machines, and we may be in a coma, and that's why I call the Shakers praying, let me die while I'm in a healthy state. Who's to know in what situation we'll be when we do leave this body? It may not be a poetic leaving. It may not be that we're laying on the bed with all Vaishnavas chanting Hare Krishna. It may not be that. It may be, but it might not be. It might be in a car. It might be anything could happen. It might be a war or missile or bomb or something. Anyway, I don't know.
I can remember both things now, because when my husband left, then remember all the devotees were around chanting, everything was so.
Yeah.
And then on my state, when I had this COVID,
COVID, you in hospital.
Yeah, 5 days on that machine, don't even remember anything of those 5 days. So if you left your body, what would happen?
Well, then it's Nihipikyamu Nashasti Pratyavayana Vidyate. Then you're up to Krishna. Your life is in Krishna's hands, and Krishna's a very kind, tender-hearted person who appreciates any service that's done. So he will be there. Although externally you may not be conscious to the world, but internally the soul, I think I mentioned this a few times, the soul cannot be overcome by a coma. The soul's always conscious. Yeah. So anyway, we depend upon Krishna.
And you know this word Madhusudana, we can also pray by calling him that name, because he's killer of demons, and we have demons within us of envy, jealousy, pride, all that. So, you know.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, Krishna, you're known as Madhusudana.
Killer of
Please,
demons.
I have
demons, yes.
the demon. I have these demonic tendencies that linger in my heart, and like a ghost giving me great fear and anxiety. Any moment, my Lord, I can succumb to their influence. Oh, Madhusudana, please, Krishna, Madhusudana, please deliver me. Oh, Nrsingadev. Yeah. Okay. Exciting, huh? Let's see what's coming up with the next text. Hare Krishna. Someone else like to read text?
I just remembered something.
Yes.
Yeah, Pankajangari, when you said Narasimhadev, Pankajangari Prabhu said, don't worry about me. Narasimhadev is doing a heart surgery with his nails, tearing my heart. This is something he said about, I think, 2-3 days before he left.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a big difference when devotees are leaving the world. I mean, devotees are ready for it. They've been hearing about it year after year. You know,
He said they were doing a heart surgery.
Yeah. And they have a shelter, so that's where Pankajangari's consciousness went, because he was worshipping Lord Nrsingadev.
Yeah.
So you can imagine someone who doesn't have this faith. Imagine the grief and terror and anxiety that they're going through when they're leaving the world. You know. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Right, someone like to read text 3? Yeah, thank you for bringing Pankajangari. Yeah, we'll just remember Pankajangari.
Yeah, I can read it.
Yes, thank you, Mother. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksaram Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Adhyatmam Uchate Uta Bhava Karo Visarga Karma Samnita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. Purport, I shall be glad. Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Parabrahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Parabrahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. In Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Brahman. The living entity, Jivatma, takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter. And sometimes he identifies with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. In material nature, he may get the body of any of the 8,400,000 species of life, but in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he is manifested sometimes as a man, demigod, animal, beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices, yajna, but when his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. This process is called karma. The Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offering are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, clouds, the earth, man and woman. And the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer on the moon, rain, grains, and semen. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Impersonalist commentators on Bhagavad Gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of Jiva in the material world, and to substantiate this, they refer to chapter 15, verse 7 of the Gita. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord, Achyuta, never falls down. Therefore, this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of Jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that in Vedic literature, Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from Parabrahman, the Supreme Lord.
Okay, thank you. So just on this last point, it's 15:7. Maivam sa jiva loke. So it's eternal fragment of myself. So it's not as if the fragment becomes the whole, or the whole becomes a fragment. It's an eternal fragment of myself. Okay, Maivam sa jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatanaha. Jiva bhuta sanatanaha. All right, so a few details here. There's quite a bit of a commentary here as well from acharyas. But any specific curiosities or questions from here? As you mentioned.
So how does the living entity fall as rain? I mean, does it enter a raindrop?
Yeah, that's quite fascinating, isn't it? Next time it rains, the next time it rains, you can give that some thought. Yeah, that's what it says. That's what it says. I think there's some Puranas which give more details.
It enters a rain. I'm imagining that it enters a raindrop, drops in the field of grain, and somehow gets absorbed as water into the grain, the spirit soul, because it's actually so tiny that it can enter into the system of the plant.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's atomic, as also described in the Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, I don't know the fine details, but Prabhupada's just given a summary of it. Perhaps that's all we kind of need to know. It takes on the form of grains, and that's why we fast. It's something we fast on Ekadashi. I can't remember, but there's a certain atmosphere which is created by that constellation of planets at that time, which has effect on grains. So that's why we fast from grains on those, one of the reasons, on those 2 days. But here it is. This is probably quite fascinating. Here it is described. Yeah, descends to earth in the form of rain, takes on the form of from rain to grains, then man eats the grains and then injected into the womb of a woman to get a particular type of body. Yeah. Again and again and again. It's a repeated cycle. Yeah, as it says here. The living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. Yeah.
I also heard or read, I can't remember what, like when, like say heavenly planets, when their piety is finished and the next minute they just drop as rain like down, you know. I mean, I don't understand that.
When the what's finished?
When their piety is finished, when their sukriti is finished.
Yeah. It's I've heard. I would like to read more details on it.
I never really. I mean, I've accept because we're supposed to accept what's in the shastras. So, but I didn't understand it, and putting this and that, I can kind of.
I'm trying to remember the name of this one specific prana which deals and give the details. I've got it in my computer somewhere. I forget the name of it, but it gives the details of the leaving. That's why there's the Shraddha ceremony, which plays an important role in Vedic culture. Yeah, but what was I going to say when you were saying that? Yeah, I've heard it described. I remember one senior devotee giving class. It's like here one day and gone the next in the heavenly planets. You know, like they have a garland, and when the garland slightly fades, then they whoosh.
No, yeah.
How it works exactly, I really don't know, because I'm sure the demigods have families. I don't know. We're reading they have families in Vaikuntha, isn't it? We've just been reading. So what happens, you know, is sitting there and all of a sudden, poof, someone's gone. Yeah, how the details of it is. It's a bit like, I experienced it's a bit like when you're like here in Mayapur, many persons like me, many people come and stay for some time. And then, you know, they may stay for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 month or 2 months. Then one day they're gone. You know, and you may not even realize they're gone until a month later. Like that. But main point here is that this is the entanglement that the jiva is in, going up and down. And it Prabhupada described different types of life. Did he describe it here? Yeah. A man, a demigod, an animal, a beast, a bird. Other places Prabhupada puts on bug as well. One could be a demigod, an animal, a beast, a bird, or a bug, according to his karma. So that's why not just, well, especially as devotees, but other spiritual paths as well, especially the Vedic paths, or the Vedic path, generally persons, sadhus, that's why people become sadhus or they retire, because they want to not get entangled in any way in karma. So that's why they may live, that's why some sadhus live alone. You know, they don't want to become entangled in karma because they know of its, and there's questions about, I think this is in the 3rd chapter, about karma, akarma. There's karma, and there's akarma, and there's vikarma, there's different types of karma, and Krishna explains all of that. But we want to do akarma, which means Krishna conscious activities which do not give, which will not cause us to take birth again. There's no material reaction. Yeah. But anyway, it's interesting subject which we are blessed to have knowledge of and to read about it. Yeah, the process of leaving this world. And it's, any other questions here? Here on the just highlight this here. I was looking in the commentaries for this to be explained a bit more. Remember, one devotee, he did that devotee, I always forget his name, devotee, he did the Gita and Rita recordings, Purnachandra Maharaj. Yeah, I remember him describing what this is. So now, Vedic sacrifice, on the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offerings are made into the fire. 5 kinds of fire are conceived as the heavenly planets. All right, that's quite understandable, I guess. You worship the demigods. Then clouds. I'm not too sure what that is all about. Sacrificial offerings are made to 5 kinds of fire. One of them is the clouds, the earth, man and woman. The 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings of faith. So the enjoy on the moon, rain, grains, and semen. This will be Bhagavad, I should think. So anyway, when it says sacrifice, it doesn't mean fire. It means what you dedicate your life to, and the specific prayers that you may offer. Some will offer their belongings. Some will offer their possessions. That was described earlier as well. Yeah. Some will engage in the sacrifice of marriage. Yeah. They will engage in the sacrifice of marriage. Some will make sacrifice to the demigods.
So, Prabhu, would that rain and clouds be worship of Indra, no?
Could be. Yeah, let me just quickly
Yeah.
look if there's anything.
Well, what is man and woman?
I think that's the marriage ceremony. You sacrifice. You live together as a sacrifice for the Lord.
Right, yes.
Yeah, and then you bring in Krishna conscious children, you sacrifice the Garbhadana semen. Anyway, we'll have to look. I mean, I didn't, yeah, perhaps I should have looked before to find out more details. But anyway, the main point is I guess the main point is we're entangled in this material world. So just, any other questions or comments here? Just, what is Brahman? Krishna tells Arjuna that the jiva is Brahman. Srila Prabhupada writes, Brahman is indestructible. So that's us, the jiva, yeah? Eternally existing. And its constitution is not changed at any time, yeah? We are witness change, yeah? We are the constant that's witnessing the change. In our own life, we are witnessing change. Change of circumstances, change of relationships, change of likes and dislikes, and change of this one body growing from baby to youth to old age. It's the little jivas sitting there watching all this change. Yeah. But the jiva itself does not change. Yeah. It's not changed at any time. Yeah. So that's Brahman. Yeah. Beyond Brahman, there's Para Brahman, so that's the Lord. And there's more here. There's quite a few more details here. Hare Krishna. Let's just read the end here. In answering Arjuna's first 3 questions, okay, Krishna has clarified the difference between the body and the soul. He's explained the difference between the activity of the body, which causes the soul's bondage, and the spiritual activity of the soul executed in the material world, which causes neither karma nor bondage. In other words, the soul is spiritual. Its nature is devotional service to Krishna, and its karma is the material body or its conditioned nature. Okay. So Krishna packs so much information in, isn't it, in just 3 verses. There's so much he's explained to Arjuna. Right, let's just time check. 3 minutes. Let's just have a look at text 4. Perhaps we won't. Let's look at the purple. All right, let's just read the translation of text 4. Perhaps we can repeat again next week, this one. Let's have a look. So I can read this one. Krishna says, Adibodham, is it just one? Yeah. Adibodham kashobhava purushas chahi devatam adiyagnoham evatra dehi deha pritambhara. Yeah, dehi means body. Yeah, dehinam sminyata dehi. Okay. Or best of embodied beings. So Krishna speaking to Arjuna. Or best of embodied beings, the physical nature, which is constantly changing. I just mentioned that, yeah. Adibhuta. There's one devotee called Adibhuta. I know. It's called Adibhuta. Interesting name to get. You are named constant changing. I'm sure it has other names as well. It's called other meanings. It's called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. Yeah, it's constantly changing. And we, remember, we're the soul. We sit and we observe all these changes. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, that's the Virat Purusha, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adideva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied living being, and called Adhyatma. All right, so Krishna's clarifying here. Adibhuta, the material manifestation. Adidevata, the demigods, including the sun and moon, and Adhyatma is called the Lord of Sacrifice. All right. Any final questions or comments here? There's a big bell ringing here in Mayapur. I can hear it, 7 o'clock. So let's just go away with that thought, perhaps, that that we are existing. We are the soul, which is unchanging, and we get distracted by the changes, and therefore we forget our relationship with the Lord, who is in our heart also, as unchanging. So the idea is that while we're in this world of duality, forced to face the different changing situations and circumstances, let's kind of reflect that we are soul and we are, part and parcel of Krishna, and that relationship is unchanging, that we've just forgotten that relationship. The idea is that we become a bit detached from the changing and we focus on that which is eternal. Yeah, Adhyatma, which is the Supreme Lord. All right. Easier said than done, but let's try. Hare Krishna. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. We had a good few devotees with us today. Hare Krishna. And I wish you well, and please join us next week, and we'll continue with text.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah, for Bhagavad Gita. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita.
Prabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hari Hari. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai.